Hi, in this video you'll be learning about experimental design. There are four characteristics of a well-designed experiment: comparison, random assignment, control, and replication. For comparison, use a design that compares two or more treatments. For random assignment, use chance to assign experimental units to treatments. Doing so helps create roughly equivalent groups of experimental units by balancing the effects of other variables among the treatment groups. For control, keep other variables that might affect the response the same for all groups. And for replication, use enough experimental units in each group so that any differences in the effects of the treatments can be distinguished from chance differences between the groups.
A vital part of every experiment is to have control over all of your variables. In each experiment, you should have control over all variables except for the explanatory and response, which you should be measuring for cause and effect. A control group is necessary in order to provide a baseline for comparing the effects of your explanatory variable on your response variable. Control exists to prevent confounding variables from affecting your data and to reduce variability in the response group. Not all experiments require a control group, but you should seek to control all parts of an experiment.
There are a number of sources of bias that can impact a given experiment. The AP exam will likely feature questions asking about how these sources will impact an experiment. As mentioned in the previous slide, confounding variables are those outside of the explanatory variable that will influence the response variable. In essence, this means things that could happen alongside the explanatory variable that will impact your results without knowing. These are mostly eliminated in experiments through control, but in an observational setting, you'll need to examine these variables. Here's a tip. In the exam, you need to specify two things about an identified confounding variable: how a variable is associated with the explanatory variable, or how it could happen for certain values of the explanatory, and how it will impact your results. An example of a confounding variable is the placebo effect, which occurs in medical studies where a fake treatment will be more effective than no treatment. In order to account for this, the individuals must be assigned randomly to groups with either placebos or the real treatment. The individual must not know which they have, which is considered blinding, and sometimes the test administrators must also not know who has which, in order to ensure fair judgment of each group's results, which is considered double blinding.
Moving on to how to randomize a design. AP exam tip. If you are asked to describe the design of an experiment on the AP exam, don't just draw a diagram. You have to also describe how the treatments are assigned to the experimental units and how they will be measured or compared. In a completely randomized design, the experimental units are assigned by chance. This means that each treatment won't necessarily have an equal number, however, they all have the same chance of being selected. On to block design specifically. AP exam tip. Don't mix the language of experiments and the language of observational studies. Blocking is for experiments, but stratification and clustering is for samples only. We use blocks on similar explanatory variables that could affect the response variable. Randomization of experimental units to treatments is carried out separately within each block, and this allows us to account for the variation in the response. A type of block design is the matched pairs design, in which similar subjects are matched together and treated to different treatments. Sometimes this can consist of just one experimental unit that is subjected to both treatments.
Okay, class, let's take a look at a list of essential questions you should ask yourself before conducting your experiment. First, were individuals randomly assigned to each group?
Yes!
Okay, now you can make inferences about cause and effect. Now, were individuals randomly selected?
Yes!
You can now make inferences about the population. Aside from asking these essential questions, you should also make sure that you follow data ethics, which is not required for the AP exam, but keep in mind, human subjects should be screened in advance and should provide informed consent about what they will be doing during the study and what the study will try to research.
Thank you for watching our video. If you want further review, please refer to the following questions on the AP exam for 2009, number 3, and on the AP exam for 2007, number 2.